Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Abortion seems to be running into a wall of truth. Hi, I'm Shawn Akers, the Vice President for Middle Eastern Affairs with Liberty Counsel, in for Matt Staver today. And joining me again in studio is Deryl Edwards, the President of Liberty Counsel Action. Deryl, yesterday we had the chance to discuss an Alabama Supreme Court case that has held that unviable preborn children have the right to have suits filed on their behalf for wrongful death. And today I'd like to continue that discussion, but also move a little more broadly into the incredible, as we go down, as I made a list of all the ways that we are relooking at this abortion issue. Truly, it seems that logic and science are really outrunning Roe v. Wade, and that the case for life is becoming one that can't be avoided.
Well, what's good is it looks like the courts, at least this court in Alabama, is trying to catch up to medical science, and in one opinion made a 40-year jump from the early 70s to 2012. So we're very happy to see that.
You know, it's kind of like this, Deryl. If you're standing in a dark room and someone lights a single match, it just lights up. You see it from every direction. And in such a dark set of jurisprudence over this particular politicized issue, when one court has the fortitude to strike a match for truth and shine just a half ounce of light, of logic, of common sense, it just shines really, really brightly. And that's exactly what this case has done. It basically pointed out that we can't charge a child for our inability to make them viable today. That, it is what it is, so to speak. So here's the thing. It's not just this particular case. There are a variety of measures all around the nation as we take steps forward and steps back, but we're still having to engage this issue. Everybody feels it, Deryl, that there's something about this argument that doesn't make sense in common jurisprudence, that there's something about Roe v. Wade that's just not right. And when we have to confront it, it begins to take on a new image.
Yeah, and it's funny. You see the liberals and the feminists who are backing Roe, they are desperately trying to keep that ruling on life support itself. And it seems in so many cases that's what's happening, because it's being chipped away at the edges. And as you said when you opened the program, it's just being hit broadsided by truth, actually.
And here's one of the things that really exposes that. When we can sit down together at a table and have an open and frank discussion, here's the way you see something, here's the way I see something, let's push those ideas together and see what happens, which one's more logical, which one really does play out in truth better. That's one thing. Now, if I'm really, really afraid, though, when you have someone who doesn't want to debate, what they really want to do is gag the other side. When they really want to do is to protect through politics what they can't sustain through logic, something's wrong. And that's really where we've gotten in this particular issue. I'll give you a couple of examples. We have a wonderful school of nursing at Liberty University, and I know many of them. And one of the things that the nurses will point out to you very quickly is that with any medical procedure that you want to do with a minor child, they're not going to be touched except in an emergency without parental consent. Just not going to happen. So why in the world this particular procedure, one so invasive as an abortion, would even be an issue of parental consent shows that somebody doesn't want to argue this openly. We talked a little bit off camera. I saw recently a new law that is about to take force that is requiring parental consent before a minor can go to a sunbed, before they can get a tan. We're saying that there's so much risk here with getting a tan at a sunbed that you have to have parental consent to do it. But yet, many of the same forces that would be for that level of control over tanning institutions would in the same breath defend an abortion clinic's freedom to provide an abortion to any child that it chooses to do so without parental consent. These type arguments expose so much of the prejudices of those making them, Deryl.
And what you see is a blindness towards science, and I think it's ironic that conservatives for so many years were told that they were backward, that they were anti-science, and that all plays really well until the science starts to turn the other way, and it shows that, wait a minute, we were right all along, that life does begin at conception, that we see things through. We talked earlier about these new ultrasounds, the 4D ultrasounds, and the amazing images, and all of a sudden it's like, well, let's shut the blinds, let's not let the world see the light that's trying to come in, and let's just let everybody continue to live in the darkness here. We don't want them to see that this child actually looks like a human being, that moves like a human being, because that could change things around, and then what we want to be legal, remain legal, public opinion would turn against us.
You know, Deryl, ignorance is the best friend of those that want to manipulate science, because the fact is that science is limited by our abilities. If you look back 100 years, we thought things 100 years ago that were ludicrous. We thought things 500 years ago that were ludicrous. But they were science at the time. They were truth at the time. At the time that George Washington became ill, science said the way to heal him was to bleed him, to allow blood to seep from his body, hastening his death. You know, that was science at the time. Today, we probably would give him a blood transfusion rather than take his blood away. Science has, at different times, Hitler used science, a variety of charts and graphs, to show that the Jewish people were not human. American science was used to treat African Americans as different than others. Science is something that is open to manipulation based on ignorance. Now, here's the thing, though. If science is allowed to march forward, it does begin to provide answers. And you find that it increases with logic, that you find the limitations of science are our limitations, that if we could know everything, Albert Einstein says, I want to know God's thoughts because everything else is just details. Well, we're trapped in the details. So when we're forced to face things like this, what they're calling a 4D ultrasound, this is one of the biggest battles in the United States, is whether informed consent requires a doctor to show a mother who's about to have an abortion what she's aborting. And there's a reason for that. It's because she's likely, when she sees that picture, not to see a what that she's aborting, but a who that she's aborting. You look and you see a baby that doesn't look very different at all from the one that you would hold in your arms just a few weeks later. You see a little baby that's making facial expressions, that's sucking their little thumbs, that are moving in purposeful ways. You see with your own eyes what your heart already knew. And it's science that's forcing us to confront that. You make such an excellent point, Deryl.
But what it doesn't fit is their political agenda. So when science butts up against their political agenda, that has to trump it. And then, as I said before, we have to just go into darkness and pretend that it didn't exist, which is, as you said earlier, you made the analogy that this little candle in Alabama is lighting up the whole room.
You were exactly right. Science is my friend until it gets in my way, so to speak, politically, and then I need to shut it off. All of a sudden, you really have to ask yourself who. The word fascist is often thrown around by the left, but I'm not sure who's wanting to burn the science books these days. It would appear that literally the idea of abortion has been outrun by science, has been outrun by objective truth, has been outrun by those things that people like Jay Budiashevsky would say we can't not know. You know, there are all kinds of situations in life where you just know that something is what we call in the legal realm malum in se, bad in and of itself. You just don't do it. If you want to become more educated on the science of abortion, on the policy of abortion, please go to lc.org. Go to our website. We have a 19-page booklet there that'll provide you with an incredible amount of information, including some things that you might not have known. For instance, that among those that are receiving abortions these days, some 70% self-identify as either Catholic or Protestant Christians. We are on the front lines of this war, and we're inviting you to become active, engaged citizens. Visit us at lc.org. Go to us at 1-800-671-1776 and take full advantage of the resources that we have to make you a citizen leader in this fight.